Hello, wonderful leaders. Welcome back to Boot Camp. I wanted to tell you today about the second part of emotional intelligence. Remember last week we talked about awareness. How can you be aware of the emotions in yourself and read the cues in others? This time it's about management. How do you manage and regulate your emotions and get a little control over them so that they don't control you? So here is a quick review. We talked about constructed theory of emotions, that from the trigger out in the world, that you have a bodily response, you have what's going on in your mind, you take those together and integrate them, which is what results in the feelings and the behavioral responses and actions you take. What I want to do today is to kind of explain how your mind and body can work together in coordination, and that you can use your mind to impact your body, and your body can impact your mind. There's one way to really understand this easily. We've already practiced this in this course, and that's how do you combat stress? Remember stress? And remember how one of the prime interventions is a brain break, often with breathing? You're interrupting the stress response. Stress is an emotion. It's actually an emotional response. It's one that combines a whole bunch of feelings of fear, anxiety, worry, dread. All of those are combined into your stress response. It's one of the best known, best studied, best understood responses that we have. When you have your stress response, remember there's a trigger out in the world. It impacts the way that your body feels, the tension, the heart racing, the breathing really quickly, the tension in your muscles, and that the way to combat that is for your brain to tell your body to do something that counteracts. That's the opposite of a typical bodily stress response. So instead of tensing up and your heart racing and your breathing going really quickly, you slow down your breathing. You try to relax your muscles. And by shifting your body away from the bodily stress response, your brain takes that information in. Suddenly it's going, hey, you're breathing really slowly. That can't be consistent with this idea of stress. Maybe this isn't a stress response, or maybe it's a much reduced stress response than I thought originally. And then the stress doesn't take over. You can keep your thinking brain intact. You can do the same with emotion. That with emotion, you can actually change the way that your body is positioned. And by changing the body, the brain then is trying to integrate, I thought this was a fear response, but I'm noticing that the body isn't actually super stressed, intense, and backing away. Instead, it's acting a little bit different. I wonder what's going on. And the construction of that emotion is going to shift and turn out a little bit differently. So anxiety can turn into excitement. Fear and shame can turn into courage and curiosity. There's lots of different ways that you can take an emotion, and by shifting some of the body and shifting a little bit of the stories that you're telling yourself, the memories that are coming up, that you can actually change the outcome. So I'd love to try an experiment with you. And this is an embodiment practice. I want you to notice how the same situation lands perhaps differently if you have your body in a different stance. So this is the first one. I want you to put your body in the face expression and the posture of when you're feeling ashamed. When you're feeling really ashamed, hunch over, your chin goes down, you look away, or you look down, that you get small. So I want you right now just to put your body in a kind of small, crouched, hunched, chin down position. Okay? You doing it? Good. So when you have your body in this kind of hunched, small, down, head down, shamed kind of stance, I want you to imagine how it would feel while you're feeling like, where your body's like this. Imagine a colleague in a staff meeting surrounded by 20 of your other workmates, publicly putting you down. You put up an idea, and this kind of mean, nasty colleague goes, well, that's a stupid idea. When your body is like this, how does that land? How do you feel? How might you respond? Just think about that for a moment. I know that I would have a little voice inside of me like, oh my gosh, I think he's right. Like, that was a stupid idea. That I would start feeling the shame. And I think I might respond by withdrawing. Okay, sorry, bad idea. Or going off in a corner and crying, or even leaving the room. Like, there's a certain way that you can respond when your body is like this. All right, shake that off. Now, let's try a different body. I want you to put your body into a confident stance. So, expand outward, lift your chin up, look somebody in the eye, get a little slight smile on your face. I want you to feel like you're a hero about to take on the world. Some people like to put their hands on their hips. It encourages that wide open, big, bold stance. Got it? All right, now imagine the same colleague, you put forth an idea, and they say, well, that was a stupid idea. How does it land? Same or different? Just by having your body in a slightly different stance, chin up, eyes forward, a little bit open. The way that feels to me is, well, you're this one that's stupid. You're the one that has the wrong idea. It was actually a pretty darn good idea. That when you have your body in that stance, it's a little bit of that fake it to make it. That you have created a very different feeling in response to that trigger. So that trigger was what your colleague said, but because your body was in a certain stance, when your brain tries to construct an emotion and a response out of that, it goes for a very different point of view. Perhaps defensive, argumentative, prideful, ignoring, able to let it go. It changes the way that that happens. In many cases, that's enough. In many cases, just shifting your body and consciously putting your body into a different stance. When you notice yourself crushing in, expand outward. When you notice that you're getting tense, relaxing. So oftentimes that's enough, but that's not always enough. And continually faking it to make it isn't a good long-term strategy. It's good short-term, especially when you can get all of those voices to quiet down. But when you can't, there's more that you need to do. And I'm going to tackle it through the lens of imposter syndrome, which is something incredibly common to many, many leaders. Imposter syndrome is extreme self-doubt, feeling like I'm not qualified, feeling like I'm a fraud, feeling like how could they possibly have ever included me? They're going to find me out. Here all are my brilliant colleagues. All of them are so much smarter. They have their shit together. Why in the world have I ever thought that I could be part of that? There's a big, deep fear of being found out and a big, deep fear of failure. That if I step in and I fail, everything is going to crumble. Everything's going to fall apart. That's classic imposter syndrome. And I want to tell you right now just how common it is. It seems as if perhaps you're the only one. You're not. I've felt that way. Almost every leader has felt that way at some time in their career. This is something that, again, by managing your emotions, you can develop the skills to overcome it. The way to do that is that you bring your body, your mind, and all of your heart into congruence. You start with your body. Start with developing that confident stance. Start noticing when it is that you're crushing inward, and force your body to relax, force your body to open, force your body to stay positive, your chin up. What you're doing is you're making one part, the easiest part to control, out of line with the idea of imposter syndrome. How could you be an imposter if you're standing this way? That's what your brain is thinking. Then you want to also get your mind in gear. We did a lot of work a couple lessons back on inner voices. That is grounding yourself and understanding that you have this wise self that's different from some of those voices that might be telling you you're not good enough, might be telling you that you're unqualified. That if you can start mastering some of those voices and instead focusing on some of the successes and strengths that you bring, it can be really helpful. One way to do that is with a good things practice, that at the end of the day, you write down 3 good things and successes that you had a role in creating. Anything. Could be a little thing. I made a really good breakfast. Tiny little thing. But yet, it's a good thing that you had a role in creating. Could be, I got one part of a project done, and I did it pretty well. That is a really good thing. That's a success. Whatever that success might be, just write it down. 3 things. But that daily practice of noting what is it that you did successfully, rather than looking at your endless to-do list and going, oh my gosh, I still have a ton of things left. Instead, note, hey, I got 2 things off of my to-do list that have been bugging me. That success, and attributing it to your own work, your own effort, your own energy, can do a lot of good. So that's helping your mind, is mastering the inner voices and noting the good things and successes. Finally, how do you deal with the heart piece, the emotion piece? The emotion piece is breaking the silence and allowing yourself to feel your way through and move through some of the negative emotions in the way. It's really intimidating to tell people, hey, I'm feeling a bit like an imposter here. I feel like I don't belong. If you can't find somebody you trust to share that with, and if you trust somebody and you share that sentiment, I almost guarantee you that they will say, hey, you know what? Me too. There was a time when I felt that way too. If you can't find a person, write it. Write it down, or get a voice recorder and speak it. The reason that this can be so powerful is because there's actually research that shows that speaking, writing, or sharing those big emotions, those big things on your heart, helps you move through the tunnel. There's this one amazing study which was done with senior engineers. They were closing down an entire senior engineering branch. 100 engineers, most of whom were in their 40s and 50s and were kind of towards the tail end of their careers, were all laid off with no prospect of being able to find a new job within that company. Those individuals, almost all of them, went into deep self-doubt, imposter, depression, anxiety over what are they going to do. Mid-career, how do you find another role when you've been at this company for 20 years, 30 years? What they did was they encouraged these individuals to write, share, or voice all of their emotional experiences that they were going through. Half of them did that, and half of them were assigned to career counseling. Here, let me help you with your resume. Let me help you with all of your, interviewing skills. So they had that choice. Those individuals who had the added benefit of 20 minutes a day expressing their emotions, they were 3 times more likely to have a job 4 months later than the ones that just got career counseling. 3 times more likely. There's a huge benefit to opening your heart, to allowing yourself to move through those emotional experiences and actually feel them. What happens when you can go through the full tunnel is that you feel all of the feels, and it feels yucky, but then you start getting insights. You start learning about yourself. You start moving, things start shifting. And when that shift happens, that's where you start getting out of the tunnel. You learn that the fear is actually telling you what's really important in your life. You learn who you really are. You learn all sorts of things by being able to really navigate your own emotions. So, again, to overcome imposter syndrome or that fear of failure, you want to bring your mind, body, and heart into congruence. Your body with how you hold yourself, your mind with conquering the inner voices and doing a practice of what are the good things and successes, and your heart by opening it up and breaking the silence, either to somebody you trust or in writing or a voice recorder. Anyone allows you to share what's on your heart, and that is a really powerful thing. Awesome. So your experiment this week is I want you to spend some time practicing a confident, bold stance. I want you to do that daily. Find a time, either in the morning, in the afternoon, to really ground yourself and to really open up and expand, and not just with your body, but also see, how can I bring my mind to this practice? How can I bring my heart to this practice? So that heart, mind, and body are all aligned. For instance, if you take that confident stance, that's a great time to practice the good things. What are 3 things that I accomplished that my effort brought about today? Think about what those 3 are. And then notice, what is my heart feeling right now? How am I feeling? Name the emotion. So you're thinking mind and body and heart, putting them all together in just a momentary practice. Shouldn't take more than 1 minute. You could try that when you first stand up in the morning after you've brushed your teeth. You could try that right before you get into your bed. You could do that right when you walk into the meeting room. Just take a moment to get set and put yourself into a congruent mind, body, and heart state. In the discussion, I'm curious, what, if anything, about our conversation about imposter syndrome and fear of failure, what perhaps resonated with you? If there was anything there, I'd love for you to share it. Remember, breaking the silence and opening it up in a safe space is a really good thing. Good job, wonderful leaders. Blessings.